Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We got Dracula. Um, I've already read this book back when I was in high school. None of that. um, I've always kind of hated reading, but I would get in trouble in high school because I would be reading Dracula instead of paying any sort of attention. Um, so I want to say it was like my sophomore. It was junior year. Let's just say junior year of high school. I was on break and I went to Colorado. Wasn't living there here at the time, and with my grandfather. We had a hotel room. He likes to ski, and I'm not really into that, so I stayed in the hotel room and I drank wine and started to read Dracula. It turns out to be a pretty good book. It's my favorite. I'm looking at this introduction, seeing if I need to read it. I don't know. The introduction is pretty long. Kind of just want to get into it. Do people do that? Do people read introductions, prologues, stuff like that? I don't. I'm also not an avid reader. Wow, I'm glad I chose not to read the introduction. Further reading. Wow, biography, bibliography, books about Dracula, related texts and studies, essays and articles. Wow. Let's go ahead and skip to page 500, start the book. Get my handy dandy ribbon ready. Probably just going to do one chapter. To my dear friend, Homie Beg. That was what was in the book, not they're not my homie. All right, so chapter 1, we start with Jonathan Harker's journal, kept in shorthand. On the 3rd of May, and oh no, a word that's going to be hard to pronounce. Okay, on the 3rd of May, Bistritz, sorry if I got that wrong, left Munich at 8:35 p.m. On the 1st of May, arriving at Vienna early next morning. Should have arrived at 6:46, but train was an hour late. Budapest, I hope I say that right, seems a wonderful place. From the glimpse which I got of it from the train and the little I could walk through the streets. I feared to go very far from the station, as we had arrived late and would start as near as the correct time as possible. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east, the most western of the splendid bridges over the Danube, I don't know, man, which is here of noble width and depth, took us among the traditions of Turkish rule. I gotta say right now, I feel like I'm doing a terrible job at this. I know how to read, but when I see words that I don't know how to pronounce, that's not so fun. We left in pretty good time and came after nightfall to Klausenberg. See, that's a word I can understand. I hope so. Here I stopped for the night at the Hotel Royal. I had for dinner, or rather supper, a chicken done up some way with red pepper, which was very good but thirsty. Memo, get recipe for Mina. I asked the waiter, and he said it was called paprika Hindel. And that, as it was a national dish, I should be able to get it anywhere along the Carpathians. I found my smattering of German very useful here. Indeed, I don't know how I should be able to get on without it. Having some time at my disposal when in London, I had visited the British Museum and made search among the books and maps in the library regarding Transylvania. It had struck me that some foreknowledge of the country could hardly fail to have some importance in dealing with a noble of that country. I find that the district he named is in the extreme east of the country, just on the borders of three states: Transylvania, Moldavia, and Bukovina. Bukovina. I don't know about that. Hey, James. How are you? We're reading Dracula. You haven't missed much. Jonathan Harker talked about his dinner. And where did I leave off? In the midst of the Carpathian Mountains, one of the wildest and least known portions of Europe. I ended at a comma, not a period. My bad. I'm a noob. I was not able to light on any map or work giving the exact locality of Castle Dracula, as there are no maps of this country as yet to compare with our own Ordnance Survey maps. But I found that Bistritz, the post town, named by Count Dracula, is a fairly well-known place. I shall enter here some of my notes, as they may refresh my memory when I talk over my travels with Mina. In the population of Transylvania, there are four distinct nationalities: Saxons in the south, and mixed with them the Wallachs, I hope I said that right, who are the descendants of the Dacians, hope I said that right, Magyars, hope I said that right, in the west, and Seceles, probably did not say that right, in the east and north. I will say, soon, I'm probably not going to have to deal with words I don't know, because he's talking about European places, and they've got tricky names. I'm going among the latter, who claim to be descended from Attila and the Huns. Yeah, Groker. Welcome in. Thank you. Um, Sorry. Okay. This may be so, for when the Magyars conquered the country in the 11th century, they found the Huns settled in it. I read that every known I read that every known superstition in the world is gathered into the horseshoe of the Carpathians, as if it were the center of some sort of imaginative whirlpool. If so, my stay may be very interesting. That's what we call foreshadowing. Oh, golly. About to get ice cream? Ooh, get pistachio. That's my favorite. The Croca, baby. Maybe I should not. I don't know. Okay. Where am I? Where am I? Memo. I must ask the Count all about them. Okay. I did not sleep well, though my bed was uncomfortable enough, for I had all sorts of queer dreams. I wonder what that means. In like the 1800s, what, like happy? I don't know. Or strange. Probably strange. There was a dog howling all night under my window, which may have had something to do with it, or it may have been the paprika, for I had to drink up all the water in my, oh gosh, this word, carafe. You know what I'm talking about. Carafe. Carafe. I don't know. And was still thirsty. Towards morning, I slept and was awakened by the continuous knocking at my door, so I guess I must have been sleeping soundly then. I had for breakfast more paprika and a sort of porridge of maize flour, which they said was mamaliga, and eggplant stuffed with forcemeat, a very excellent dish, which they had called emplatata. Memo. Get recipe for this also. Haagen-Dazs. Weird, peculiar. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I had to hurry to breakfast for the I had to hurry breakfast for the train started a little before 8, or rather it ought to have done so, for after rushing to the station at 7:30, I had to sit in the carriage for more than an hour before we began to move. It seems to me that the further east you go, the more unpunctual are the trains. That sounds racist. What ought they to be in China? Ah, all day long, we seemed to dawdle through a country which was full of beauty of every kind. Sometimes we saw little towns or castles on top of the steep hills, such as we see in old missals. Sometimes we ran by rivers and streams which seemed, from the wide stony margin on each side of them, to be subject to great floods. It takes a lot of water and running strong to sweep the outside edge of the river clear. I just Is that good writing? I just feel like that is unnecessary. Mamaleka? Motherleka? It's attached to your rod, Motherleka. He do be preferring the blood creme. I lost my place. Okay. At every station, there were groups of people, sometimes crowds, and in all sorts of attire. Some of them were just like peasants at home, or those I saw coming through France and Germany, with short jackets and round hats and homemade trousers. But others were very picturesque, which means tall. No, that's statuesque. I don't know what picturesque means. Sounds lovely, though. Sounds like a compliment. The women looked pretty. Dude, you have a girlfriend. You shouldn't do that. Except when you got near them. But they were they were very clumsy about the waist. Does that mean like small cheeks? Not missiles, like, but missiles, like, I have no idea what that word is. Missals. Like, I have a daily missile. It's a Catholic book. I'm not Catholic, but I have that book. And I don't think it's relevant to this. Um, so he's saying that they looked pretty until you got near them, and they were very clumsy about the waist. I don't know what that means. I can only assume it means like weird shaped butt cheeks. Again, he's got a girlfriend or wife, I think, so he shouldn't be focused in on this. Like Nina's probably going to read this. They had all full white sleeves of some kind or other, and most of them had big belts with a lot of strips of something fluttering from them, like the dresses in a ballet. But of course, petticoats under them. The strangest figures we saw were the Slavics, who are more barbarian than the rest, with their big cowboy hats, great baggy, dirty white trousers, white linen shirts, and enormous, heavy leather belts, nearly a foot wide, all studded over with brass nails. They wore high boots with their trousers tucked into. I just don't see why this is important. They wore high boots with their trousers tucked into them and had long black hair and heavy black mustaches. They are very picturesque, but, but do not look prepossessing. On the stage, they would be set down at once as some old Oriental band of brigands. On the stage, they would be set down at once as some old Oriental band of brigands. They are, however, I am told, very harmless and rather wanting in natural self-assertion. It was on the dark side of twilight when we got to Bistritz, which is a very interesting old place, being practically on the frontier, for the Borgo Pass leads from it into Bukovina. It has had a very stormy existence, and it certainly shows marks of it. 50 years ago, a series of great fires took place, which made terrible havoc on 5 separate occasions. At the very beginning of the 17th century, it underwent a siege of 3 weeks and lost 13,000 people, the casualties of war proper being assisted by famine and disease. It's a blood thinner. Uh, Not Dracula. We're reading Jonathan Harker's journal. He's the main protagonist. And I would describe him as cool. I'd say he's pretty cool. Yeah, but yeah, I don't think he should be writing in his journal about other women. Um, I have a theory that maybe they actually were good looking, and he just said that until you got close to them part, just so when Mina reads it, she doesn't get mad. Continuing, Count Dracula had directed me to go to the Golden Crone Hotel, which I found, to my great delight, to be thoroughly old-fashioned, for of course I wanted to see all I could of the ways of the country. I was evidently expected, for when I got near the door, I faced a cherry-looking elderly woman in the usual peasant dress, white undergarment with... Looking at her undergarments? With long double apron, front and back, of colored stuff fitting almost too high for modesty. I want to reread this. I faced a cheery-looking elderly woman in the usual peasant dress, white undergarment with long double apron, front and back, of colored stuff fitting almost too tight for modesty. Okay, I said high, too high. When I came close, she bowed and said, "The Herr Englishman?" "Yes," I said, "Jonathan Harker." She smiled and gave some message to an elderly man in white shirt sleeves, who had followed her to the door. He went, but immediately returned with a letter. That's funny, Groker. I like that comment makes me glad that I don't really know bra sizes. Like I've heard of them, like 34C, but I don't know what that like means. But this letter reads, "My friend, welcome to the Carpathians. I am anxiously expecting you. Sleep well tonight." Wait. This is a letter from Dracula. I should read it like I'm Transylvanian, right? Or is that cringe as fuck? It's cringe as fuck. Let's do it. "My friend, welcome to the Carpathians. I am anxiously expecting you. Sleep well tonight. At 3 tomorrow, the diligence will start from Bukovina. A place on it is kept for you. At the Borgo Pass, my carriage will await you and will bring you to me. I trust that your journey from London has been a happy one, and that you will enjoy your stay in my beautiful land. Your friend, Dracula." I don't think I want to do that again. Guilt. On the 4th of May, I found that my landlord had got a letter from the Count directing him to secure the best place on the coach for me, but on making inquiries as to details, he seemed somewhat reticent and pretended that he could not understand my German. This could not be true, because up to then he had understood it perfectly. At least he answered my questions exactly as if he did. He and his wife, the old lady who had received me, looked at each other in a frightened sort of way. He mumbled out that the money had been sent in a letter, and that was all he knew. I'm sorry, I'm kind of shit in the bed there. When I asked him if he knew about Count Dracula and could tell me anything of his castle, both he and his wife crossed themselves. Like, I think he means like signing the cross. Um, Lost my place, crossed themselves, and saying that they knew nothing at all. Okay, so I'm incorrect making that assumption. Simply refused to speak further. It was so near the time of starting that I had no time to ask anyone else, for it was all very mysterious and not by any means comforting. Just before I was leaving, the old lady came up to my room and said in a very hysterical way, "Must you go? Oh, young Herr, must you go?" She was in such an excited state that she seemed to have lost her grip of what German she knew and mixed it up with some other language which I did not know at all. I was just able to follow her by asking many questions. When I told her that I must go at once and that I was engaged on important business, she asked again, "Do you know what day it is?" I answered that it was the 4th of May. She shook her head as she said again, "Oh, yes, I know that. But do you know what on the day it is?" On my saying that I did not understand, she went on, "It is the eve of St. George's Day. Do ye not know that tonight, when the clock strikes midnight, all the evil things in the world will have full sway? Do you know where you are going and what you are going to?" What you are going to? She was in such evident distress that I tried to comfort her, but without effect. Maybe I wasn't wrong about the crossing themselves. Crossed themselves. Uh, Thank you. Thank you, Groker. Um, I think it changed. I think the voice changed from like a older German lady that I know into Dexter, Dexter's Lab. Thank you, Jens and Groker. I don't have a clue where I'm at right now. Finally, she went down on her knees. Whoa, calm down. Finally, she went down on her knees and implored me not to go, or at least to wait a day or two before starting. It was all very ridiculous, but I did not feel comfortable. Of course not. However, there was business to be done, and I could allow nothing to interfere with it. I therefore tried to raise her up and said, as gravely as I could, that I thanked her. Am I missing something? I therefore tried to raise her up and said as gravely as I could that I thanked her, but my duty was imperative and that I must go. She then rose and dried her eyes, and taking a crucifix from her neck, offered it to me. I did not know what to do, for, as an English churchman, I have been taught to regard such things as in some measure idolatrous. Oh, what a jerk. Um, I am a substitute teacher right now. Thank you, James. Um, I never understood calling the cross idolatrous, like idol worship. It was like if there's any symbol worth idolizing, it's probably the cross. That's just my opinion. Anyways, continuing. Um, I have been taught to regard such things as in some measure idolatrous, and yet it seems so ungracious to refuse an old lady meaning so well in such a state of mind. She saw, I suppose, the doubt in my face, for she put the rosary around my neck and said, "For your mother's sake," and went out of the room. I am writing up this part of the diary whilst I am waiting for the coach, which is, of course, late, and the crucifix is still round my neck. Whether it is the old lady's fear, or the many ghostly traditions of this place, or the crucifix itself, I do not know. But I am not feeling nearly as easy in my mind as usual. If this book should ever reach Mina before I do, let it bring my goodbye. Here comes the coach. Let's see. Implored, 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 implored. Oh, she implored me not to go, at least to wait a day or two before starting. So maybe I misspoke or something. I was being imploring. On the 5th of May, the castle, meaning that's the location that he's at, I guess. The gray of the morning has passed, and the sun is high over the distant horizon, which seems jagged. Whether with trees or hills, I know not, for it is so far off that big things and little things are mixed. I am not sleepy, and as I am not to be called till I awake, naturally, I write till sleep comes. There are many odd things to put down, and lest who reads them may fancy that I dined too well before I left Bistritz, let me put down my dinner exactly. I dined on what they call robber steak, bits of bacon, onion, and beef, seasoned with red pepper and strung on sticks and roasted over the fire. In the simple style of the London cat's meat, the wine was golden media media sch, if you know what that word is, which produces a queer sting on the tongue, which is, however, not disagreeable. Got it. I had only a couple of glasses of this and nothing else. When I got on the coach, the driver had not taken his seat, and I saw him talking with the landlady. They were evidently talking of me, for every now and then they looked at me, and some of the people who were sitting on the bench outside the door, which they call by a name meaning word bearer, came and listened, and looked at me, most of them pityingly. I could hear a lot of words often repeated. I could hear a lot of words often repeated, queer words, for there were many nationalities in the crowd. So I quietly got my polyglot dictionary from my bag and looked them out. I must say they were not cheering to me, for amongst them were Ordog, which means Satan, Pokol, hell, Stragoika, witch, Vrolok, and Volkaslak, both of which mean the same thing, one being Slavic and the other Serbian. For something that is either werewolf or... Oh, I'm sorry. I read that like shit. Vrolok and Volkaslak, both of which mean the same thing, one being Slavic and the other Serbian, for something that is either werewolf or vampire. Memo: I must ask the Count about these superstitions. Twink. Yeah, that's wow, that's a good word. That is a good word. Well, I mean, I'm thinking bad stuff too. Trust me. My mind is like not okay. Well, it's not bad. I've got a dirty mind. Wants to fuck. Golly, and if you keep that in mind, I'm pretty sure that is like, well, no, I don't think that is ever the case. I don't think Dracula bangs Jonathan Harker, but I do think we're about to read like something later on where you could have that in mind and it would like stick. So let's do our best. Where the fuck did I leave off? Okay. When we started, the crowd around the inn door, which had by this time swelled into a considerable size, all made the sign of the cross and pointed two fingers towards me. With some difficulty, I got a fellow passenger to tell me what they meant. He would not answer at first, but on learning that I was English, he explained that it was a charm or guard against the evil eye. Much like looking at those ladies earlier. This was not very pleasant for me. Just starting for an unknown place to meet an unknown man, but everyone seemed so kind-hearted and sorrowful and so sympathetic that I could not be touched. I shall never forget the last glimpse which I had of the inn yard and its crowd of picturesque figures. That's a tough word to say, and the more beer I drink, the harder it gets. All crossing themselves. I, I'm certain that's what he means. Crossing. I'm certain. Um, as they stood round the wide archway, with its background of rich foliage of oleander, orange trees, and green tubs clustered in the center of the yard, then our driver, I feel like I'm not even gonna worry about it. Then our driver, whose wide linen drawers covered the whole front of the box seat, Gatsa, they call them, cracked his big whip over. What now? Cracked his big whip over his four small horses. Hey, come on, that's gross. Which ran abreast, and we set off on our journey. You know, you can hang in some states for that, but some states it's legal. Just because it's legal in those states doesn't make it right, though. Yeah, oh, on horses, nonetheless. I once got in a political argument with someone regarding legality and morality, and I was like, it's legal to have sex with horses in some states. Doesn't make it okay at all. Irrelevant. I soon lost sight and I soon lost sight and recollection of ghostly fears and the beauty of the scene as we drove along. Although, had I known the language or other languages which my fellow passengers were speaking, I might not have been able to throw them off so easily. Before us lay a green sloping land, full of forest and woods, with here and there steep hills, crowned with clumps of trees or with farmhouses. The blank gable, Gable, the blank gable end to the road. There was everywhere a bewildering mass of fruit blossom, apple, plum, pear, cherry, and as we drove by, oh my gosh, as we drove by, I could see green grass under the trees, spangled with fallen petals. In and out amongst these green hills of what they call here the Mittelland, Mittel, it's probably middle, it's probably the same thing, ran the road, losing itself as it swept round the grassy curve, or was shut out by the straggling ends of pine woods, which here and there ran down the hillside like tongues of flame. That's interesting. That's a really long sentence. Where does the last period appear? Okay. In and out amongst the green hills of what they call here the Mittelland ran the road, losing itself as it swept round the grassy curve or was shut out by straggling ends of pine woods, which here and there ran down the hillside like tongues of flame. Well, maybe it's fall and got autumn colors on the leaves. Tongues of flame. The road was rugged, but we still seemed to fly over it with a feverish haste. I could not understand then what the haste meant, but the driver was evidently bent on losing no time in reaching Borgo Prund. I was told that this road is in summertime excellent, but that it had not yet been put in order after the winter snows. In this respect, it is different from the general run of roads in the Carpathians, for it is an old tradition that they are not to be kept in too good order. Of old, the hospodars would not repair them, lest the Turks should think that they were preparing lest the Turks should think that they were preparing to bring in foreign troops. Oh, okay. So they keep the roads in bad conditions to like not let foreign troops in. Okay. Um, and so hasten the war, which was always really at loading point. Beyond the green swelling hills of the Mittelland rose mighty slopes of forest up to the lofty steeps of the Carpathians themselves. Right and left of us they towered, with the afternoon sun falling full upon and bringing out all the glorious colors of this beautiful range. Deep blue and purple in the shadows of the peaks, green and brown where grass and rock mingled, and the endless perspective of jagged rock and pointed crags, till these were themselves lost in the distance, where the snowy peaks rose grandly. Here and there seemed mighty rifts in the mountains, through which, as the sun began to sink, we saw, now and again, the white gleam of falling water come. Innuendos. Yes, I agree. Can you show us the cover? Oh, yeah, of course. It's a Penguin Classics, and it's actually dulled because of my handling it. Um, very lovely, very gothic. I love it. Um, Sounds just like my substitute teacher. You know, I do want to be a teacher. I will be teaching Bible study to get a taste of if I like teaching or not. Okay. Groker loves the overly detailed writing for sure, James. Oh, Groker loves long sentences. Yes. It's interesting to think about how that is necessary because of main form storytelling helps paint a picture. Becoming a rarity. Yeah, and like I don't enjoy reading. I do love this book. I've read it before. I'm very ready to read it again. I like just about choked on my spit. Some water might help. Very baroque. Okay. One of my companions touched my arm as we swept around the base of a hill and opened up the lofty snow-covered peak of a mountain, which seemed, as we wound on our serpentine way, to be right before us. Look! Ist den Zeck! God's seat! And he crossed himself reverently. And we wound on our endless way, and the sun sank lower and lower behind us. The shadows of the evening began to creep around us. This was emphasized by the fact that the snowy mountaintop still held the sunset and seemed to glow out with a delicate, cool pink. Here and there we passed Czechs and Slovaks, all in, here's that fucking word again, picturesque attire. I think that's 4 times, 3 or 4 times I've seen that word now, and we're still in the first chapter. Everything's picturesque. But I noticed that, what the fuck is that word? But I noticed that goiter, I don't know what that means, was painfully prevalent. By the roadside were many crosses, and as we swept by, my companions all crossed themselves. Here and there was a peasant man or woman kneeling before a shrine who did not even turn around as we approached, but seemed in the self-surrender of devotion to have neither eyes nor ears for the outer world. I get that. There were many things new to me. For instance, hayricks in the trees, I don't know what that is, and here and there very beautiful masses of weeping birch, their white stems shining like silver through the delicate green of the leaves. Now and again we passed a later wagon, the ordinary peasant's cart with its long snake-like vertebra, calculated to suit the inequalities of the road. So, a fucking carriage that can deal with rocky roads. Cool. Oh man, I lost my place. Word. Oh, I think I found it. Yeah. On this, on this were sure to be seated quite a group of homecoming peasants, the Czechs with their white and Slavics with their colored sheepskins. So the Czechs have white sheepskins and the Slavics have colored sheepskins, the latter carrying lance fashion their long staves with axe at end. As the evening fell, it began to get very cold, and the growing twilight seemed to merge into one dark mistiness, the gloom of the trees, oak, beech, and pine, though in the valleys which ran deep between the spurs of the hills, and as we ascended through the pass, what's with these long sentences, man? It was so hard to read. As we ascended through the pass, the dark firs stood out here and there against the background of lat-lying snow. Thank you for putting a fucking period somewhere. Sometimes, as the road was cut through the pine woods that seemed in the darkness to be closing down upon us, great masses of grayness, which here and there, he says here and there a lot, which here and there bestrewed the trees, produced a peculiarly weird and solemn effect, which carried on the thoughts and grim fancies engendered earlier in the evening. This is another long sentence because evening is it's got a comma after it. When the falling sun set through into strange relief the ghost-like clouds which amongst the Carpathians seemed to wind ceaselessly through the valleys. See, I know I'm not reading that well, but I'm really sure that it's because it's one really fucking long sentence. Gone to fuck Dracula on the rocky road. Me want. Oh yeah, thank you. I have a squirrel one I need to build, but I also have a cat. So it was pretty risky trying to even build that because he'd be like, oh, paw at that. Yeah, once. Yeah. Oh, please. Um, Sometimes the hills were so steep that despite our driver's haste, the horses could only go slowly. That was, oh, I just closed the fucking book, lost my place. That was a short sentence, though. That's pretty cool. Because that's a sentence I could read. Let me read that again. I got so happy to read. Oh, hey, I turned right to it. Got so happy to read a normal length sentence that I like rage quit. Anyway, sometimes the hills were so steep that despite our driver's haste, the horses could only go slowly. I wished to get down and walk up them as we do at home, but the driver would not hear of it. No, no, he said. You must not walk here. The dogs are too fierce. Then he added, with what he evidently meant for grim pleasantry, for he looked round to have catch the approving smile of the rest. And you may have enough of such matters before you go to sleep. What the fuck does that mean? And you may have enough of such matters before you go to sleep. Old language, I guess. The only stop he would make was a moment's pause to light his lamps. When it grew dark, there was not a comment there. When it grew dark, there seemed to be some excitement amongst the passengers, and they kept speaking to him, one after the other, as though urging him to further speed. He lashed the horses unmercifully with his long whip. Okay. And with wild cries of encouragement, urged them on to further exertions. Then, through the darkness, I could see a sort of patch of gray light ahead of us. Could this be the moon? Anyways, as though there were a cleft in the hills. The excitement of the passengers grew greater. The crazy coach rocked on its great leather springs and swayed like a boat tossed on a stormy sea. I had to hold on. Now that's a cool sentence. I had to hold on. That one's short. Nice. The road grew more level and we appeared to fly along. Then the mountains seemed to come nearer to us on each side and to frown down upon us. We were entering the Borgo Pass. One by one, several of the passengers offered me gifts, which they pressed upon me with an earnestness which would take no denial. These were certainly of an odd and varied kind, but each was given a simple good faith, with a kindly word and a blessing, and in that strange mixture of fear-meaning movements which I had seen outside of the hotel at Bistritz, the sign of the cross, and the guard against the evil eye. Then, as we flew along, the driver leaned forward, and on each side of the passengers, craning over the edge of the coach, peered eagerly into the darkness. It was evident something very exciting was either happening or expected, but though I asked each passenger, no one would give me the slightest explanation. This state of excitement kept on for some little time, and at last we saw before us, and at last before, oh my gosh, I suck at reading. This sight. The state of excitement kept on for some little time, and at last we saw before us the pass opening out on the eastern side. There were dark rolling clouds overhead, and in the air the heavy, oppressive sense of thunder. It seemed as though the mountain range had separated two atmospheres, and that now we had gotten into the thunderous one. I was now myself looking out for the conveyance which was to take me to the Count. Each moment I expected to see the glare of lamps through the blackness, but all was dark. The only light was the flickering rays of our own lamps, in which the steam from our hard-driven horses rose in a white cloud. I'm picturing that, like the horses breathing, and you can see your breath in the cold. Um, didn't Keanu Reeves play Jonathan Harker? Didn't that happen? Okay. I've like hated every Dracula movie because they're not faithful to the book. Not a fucking one of them. Um, Now I have heard that there is a Mexican Dracula movie, and that one's the closest to be faithful. Pitch Chance will be introduced at some point. I don't know where. I'm probably more like Lucy. I'm probably Lucy. Weston Raw. Oppressive Thunder sounds like great ASMR. Yeah, I could go for a storm right now. Jonathan Harker looks like Charlie Cox. I don't know who that is. I've probably like if Charlie Cox has played Jonathan Harker in a Dracula movie, I've probably seen at least his face, but because I've tried to watch all of them. How much further? Till chapter 2. I don't. Okay, close. We're getting close. I think that was 4 pages. Well, like three and a half. Something about the horses breathing, and you could see it like a cloud. Yep. We could now see the sandy road lying white before us, but there was on it no sign of a vehicle. The passengers drew back with a sigh of gladness, which seemed to mock my own disappointment. I was already thinking what I had best do, when the driver, looking at his watch, said to the other something which I could hardly hear. It was spoken so quietly and in a low tone I thought it was an hour less than the time. Okay. Then turning to me, he said in German, worse than my own, "There is no carriage here. The Herr is not expected after all. We will now come on to Bukovina." I don't like that word anymore. Bukovina. Tired of it, but they're coming on it. And Return tomorrow or the next day, better the next day. Whilst he was speaking, the horses began to neigh and snort and plunge wildly, so that the driver had to hold them up. Then, amongst a chorus of screams from the peasants and the universal crossing of themselves, a calichet with 4 horses drove up behind us, overtook us, and drew up beside the coach. So they're basically getting passed by like an aggressive bukkake. Could I just call it that? Bukkake. I'm gonna try to remember that. I'm just probably gonna call it bukkake now. um. So road rage overtook us and drew up beside the coach, and I could see from the flash of our lamps, as the rays fell on them, that the horses were coal black and splendid animals. They were driven by a tall man with a long brown beard and great black hat, which seemed to hide his face from us. This is Dracula. I probably shouldn't do that. Spoil things like that. And it's not that I'm right. I'm just guessing. Long brown beard and a great black hat, which seemed to hide his face from us. I could only see the gleam of a pair of very bright eyes, which seemed red in the it's Dracula. Red in the lamplight. As he turned to us, he said to the driver, "I don't want to do the accent. You are early tonight, my friend." The man stammered in reply, "The English herr was in a hurry." The Englishman was in a hurry, is what he said, basically. Her, her. That's a kind of a hard word to say in German, but it means like sir, man, whatever. To which the stranger replied, "That is why, I suppose, oh, fuck this. That is why I suppose you wished him to go on to bukkake. You cannot deceive me, my friend. I know too much, and my horses are swift." So that was Dracula speaking, and I didn't do the accent. Sorry. As he spoke, he smiled, and the lamplight fell on a hard-looking mouth with very red lips. Oof, blood? And sharp-looking teeth, as white as ivory, unlike mine. One of the many companions whispered to another the line from Burger's Lenore. Okay, I'm about to read one of my favorite lines in this book. Den die Toten reiten schnell, which means for the dead travel fast. They got burgers. They do be gotten burgers. Okay, spelling of such word. Are you talking about the bukkake word? Let's type that one. Bukavina. Let's show you. I'm just kind of struggling with it. It just doesn't look like a real word. It looks fake. Sorry to people who know better. I'm going to read that again. Den die Toten reiten schnell. For the dead travel fast. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that says it right there. Because, like, vampire, dead. The strange driver evidently heard the words, for he looked up with a gleaming smile, sinister. Oh, sinister's not in this book. That was my input. The passenger turned his face away, at the time putting out his 2 fingers and crossing himself. "Give me the herr's luggage." No. Yeah. That was Dracula. Okay. Said the driver with an exceeding alacrity. Said, "Give me the man's luggage," said the driver with exceeding alacrity. My bags were handed out and put in the calichet. Then I descended from the side of the coach. As the calichet was close alongside, the driver helping me with a hand which caught my arm in a grip of steel. His strength must have been prodigious. Without a word, he shook his reins, and horses turned, and we swept into the darkness of the pass. As I looked back, I saw the steam from the horses of the coach by the light of the lamps, and projected against it the figures of my late companions crossing themselves. So, like, just we're just doing this. Fucking, it's so scary to be here. uh, then the driver cracked his whip and called to his horses, and off they swept on their way to Bukavina. As they sank into the darkness, I felt a strange chill, and a lonely feeling came over me. But a cloak was thrown over my shoulders and a rug across my knees, and the driver said in excellent German, "The night is chill, mein Herr." Well, that sounds like English, except for mein Herr, which means my man. And my master of the count bade, and my master of the count bade me to take all care of you. The night is chill, mein Herr. And my master, the count, bade me. Whoa! So no, this isn't Dracula. This is just another dead guy. There is a flask of plum brandy underneath the seat, if you should require it. Sorry, there's a flask of plum brandy under the seat if you should require it. I did not take any, but it was a comfort to know it was there all the same. Yeah, brandy's good. Brandy's really good. I love brandy. I felt a little strangely and not a little frightened. I think I had there been I think had there been any alternative, I should have taken it instead of prosecuting that unknown night journey. Instead of prosecuting, I'm getting really shitty at reading. Good thing we're almost done for the night. Sorry. The carriage went a hard pace straight along. Then we made a complete turn and went along another straight road. It seemed to me that we were simply going over and over the same ground again, and so I took note of some salient point and found this was so. I would have liked to have asked the driver what all this meant, but I really feared to do so, for I thought, placed as I was, any protest would have had no effect in case there had been any intention to delay. By and by, however, as I was curious to know how much time was passing, I struck a match and by its flame looked at my watch. It was within a few minutes of midnight. Remember, this is the eve of St. George's Day or whatever, and at midnight, all evil can just like bust all over everything without. It's kind of like imagine that those movies where crime is purge movies. Anyways, this gave me some sort of shock, for I suppose the general superstition about midnight was increased in my recent experiences. I waited with a sick feeling of suspense. Then a dog began to howl somewhere in a farmhouse far down the road, a long, agonized wailing, as if from fear. The sound was taken up by another dog, and then another, till, borne on the wind which now sighed softly through the pass, a wild howling began, which seemed to come another long sentence, which seemed to come from all over the country, as far as the imagination could grasp it, through the gloom of the night. Thank you. At the first howl, I need to learn how to read these long sentences. That's like half of the fucking page. At first, the howl, the horses began to strain and rear, but the driver spoke to them soothingly, and they quieted down, but shivered and sweated as though after a run away from sudden fright. Then, far off in the distance, from the mountains on each side of us, began a louder and a sharper howling, that of wolves, which affected both the horses and myself in the same way, for I was minded to jump from the calash and run, whilst they reared again and plunged madly, so that the driver had to use all of his great strength to keep them from bolting. In a few minutes, however, my own ears got accustomed to the sound, and the horses so far became quiet that the driver was able to descend and to stand before them. He petted and soothed them, and whispered something in their ears, as I have heard of horse tamers doing, and with extraordinary effect, for under his caresses they became quite manageable again, though they still trembled. The driver again took his seat, and shaking his reins, started off at a great pace. This time After going to the far side of the pass, he suddenly turned down a narrow roadway which ran sharply to the right. Soon we were hemmed in with trees, which in places arched right over the roadway till we passed us through a tunnel. I can picture that. Trees, like branches, road. It looks as though a tunnel, but it's not a tunnel. It's just beautiful trees. I know places like that. That's a now that's picturesque. I'll tell you that much. That's a picturesque sight. Um, till as we passed through a tunnel, and again, great frowning rocks guarded us boldly on either side. Though we were in shelter, we could hear the rising wind, for it moaned and whistled through the rocks, and the branches of the trees crashed together and swept along. It grew colder and colder, still and fine. Pow- it grew colder and colder, still, and fine, powdery snow began to fall, so that soon we and all around us were covered in a white blanket. Are you sure it's snow? Keen wind still carried the howling of the dogs, though this grew fainter as we went on our way. The baying of the wolves sounded nearer and nearer, as though they were closing round on us from every side. I grew dreadfully afraid, and the horses shared my fear, but the driver was not the least disturbed. He kept turning his head to the left and right, but I could not see anything through the darkness. Well, you should probably be a vampire then. Suddenly, away on our left, I saw a faint flickering blue flame. The driver saw it at the same moment. He at once checked the horses and, jumping to the ground, disappeared into the darkness. I did not know what to do, the less as the howling of the wolves grew closer. But while I wondered, the driver suddenly appeared again. I got distracted by. Uh, anyway, um, the driver suddenly appeared again and without a word took his seat, and we resumed our journey. I think I must have fallen asleep and kept dreaming of the incident, for it seemed to be repeated endlessly. And now looking back, it's like some sort of awful nightmare. Once the flame appeared so near the road that even in the darkness around us, I could watch the driver's motions. He went rapidly to where the blue flame arose. It must have been very faint, for it did not seem to illumine the place around it at all. And gathering a few stones, formed them into some device. Oh, I don't have a clue. Once there appeared a strange optical effect. When he stood between me and the flame, he did not obstruct it, for I could see its ghostly figure all the same. This startled me, but as the effect was only momentary, I took it that my eyes deceived me, straining through the darkness. Then for a time there were no blue flames, and we sped onwards through the gloom, with the howling of the wolves around us, as though they were following us in a moving circle. I'm wondering what this blue flame. I read this book. I don't know. Um. Okay. At last, there came a time when the driver went further afield than he had yet gone, and during his absence, the horses began to tremble worse than ever and to snort and scream with fright. I could not see any cause for it, for the howling of the wolves had ceased altogether. But just then the moon, sailing through the black clouds, appeared behind the jagged crest of a beetling, pine-clad rock, and by its light I saw around us a ring of wolves, with white teeth and lolling red tongues, with long, sinewy limbs and shaggy hair. I don't know if I said that word right. Sinewy. They were 100 times more terrible in the grim silence which held them. They were 100 times more terrible in the grim silence which held them than ever when they howled. For myself, I felt a sort of paralysis of fear. It, it is only when a man feels himself face to face with such horrors that he can understand their true import. We're almost done. Just like a paragraph left. All at once, the wolves began to howl as though the moonlight had some peculiar effect on them. The horses jumped about and reared, and looked helplessly round with eyes that rolled in a way painful to see. But the living ring of terror encompassed them on every side, and they had perforce to remain within it. I called to the coachman to come. Oh, for it seemed to me that our only chance was to break out through the ring and to aid his approach. I shouted and beat the side of the caliche, hoping by the noise to scare the wolves from that side, so as to give him a chance of reaching the trap. How he came there, I know not, but I heard his voice raised in a tone of imperious command, and looking towards the sound, saw him stand in the roadway. As he swept his long arms, as though brushing aside some impalpable obstacle, the wolves fell back and back further still. Just then a heavy cloud passed across the face of the moon, that we were again in darkness. When I could see the driver was climbing into the caliche and the wolves had disappeared, this was also strange and uncanny that a dreadful fear came upon me, and I was afraid to speak or move. The time seemed in, interminable. The time seemed interminable as we swept on our way, now in almost complete darkness, for the rolling clouds had obscured the moon. We kept on ascending, with occasional periods of quick descent, but in the main always ascending. Suddenly I became conscious of the fact that the driver was in the act of pulling up the horses in the courtyard of a vast ruined castle, from whose tall black windows came no ray of light, and whose broken battlements showed a jagged line across the moonlit sky. So, that's chapter 1. That was so much fucking reading. I don't like reading. Chat is fine. Let's catch back up. I'm pretty far behind. Blonde Dracula is Brad Pitt in Interview with the Vampire. Right? Right, guys? Right? I saw some vampire series. Crime be legal, yo. Dracula be purging. Oh, yeah. I haven't watched the Netflix adaptation of Interview with the Vampire. Don't plan on it. The movie's fucking awesome. Yeah, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and Kirsten Dunst. Picture this little canopy of trees above the road. Frick it, Dracula, take me there. Yeah, dude, that's a good sight. Dracula want to fuck us all. And the wolves are banging. I mean, there's a lot of, like, come. I think we just got detention gems. What does that mean? Uh-oh. HBO password? I mean, I probably could. I already have given it to a lot of people. I would want to change my password before sharing it with you, and then I'd have to inform a few other people. Like, this is a big commitment. I don't want to get your hopes up, but I also don't want to say no. Like, I could give you my HBO. Hi, Suzanne. We just finished reading chapter 1 of Dracula. Is it your birthday? This is a big commitment. Post some shorts if you feel like. By the way, Pitt, I posted some BS for got 15 subs. We need you to hit. Yeah. Oh, I can go vertical. I saw something about that. But I think it's Suzanne's birthday. Just from what I saw of a post of hers. Oh, and by the way, Suzanne, I missed your last stream because I think I only hit the bell on alt account and not my main, but I hit the bell today. I'm sorry. It passed. It passed. It passed. It passed. It passed. It passed. Sunday. Oh. Huh. Well, happy belated birthday. Recap of chapter 1. Jonathan Harker is in several places, and everywhere he goes, people sign the cross because they know where he's going, and they're like, wow, that's scary. And then on his ride to Castle Dracula, Blue Flame shows up, and there are some wolves, and the like evil horses are even scared of the wolves for some reason. But the driver is like, don't care. Driver might be Dracula, but I don't think that makes the most sense. I know he's got like minions and stuff, but the way they described him, it has to be him. So what's going to happen next is like, okay, they're going to arrive at the castle, and the driver is just going to like quickly go. I mean, he could. He's Dracula. Quickly go inside and act like that wasn't him on the coach with him. I don't know. But well, hey, Groker, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I definitely feel like at some parts I struggled reading the long sentences, words I didn't know. And I think the further I went, the like kind of more bored I got. But I'm not done reading it. I'll do another Dracula chapter another time, maybe tomorrow. Thank you, James. I really liked looking over to chat and seeing Dracula wants to fuck. Like, I always thought that was pleasant. But this is a Dracula reading stream, and we just ended the first chapter and did a recap. So that's all there is to it. I love you all. Thank you very much for hopping in. I am going to hop off of here, and it's none of your business what I do after that. I don't know. Probably just I want to try to find that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think that's on Hulu, and I don't have Hulu. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being you, because you rock, every single one of you. Thank you. And until next time, goodbye. And then I take a while to end.